The trip cost me $8,500, my offer of repair and reunion. My daughter booked just 2 rooms. Neither one was mine. I sat in the hotel lobby like a fool waiting for a call that never came. No message, no apology. Instead, a hotel manager pulled me aside and whispered, "Come with me. You deserve it." That short sentence sparked a cold, delicious clarity inside me, a sense of justice they never expected. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are right now. The drive down from La Jolla had taken 90 minutes. My shoulders ached from gripping the wheel the whole way. I rolled my suitcase through the sliding doors of the Ocean View Resort, and the lobby unfurled before me like a glossy magazine spread. Florida high-ceiling windows framed the Pacific, that endless blue meeting the horizon. Sunlight spilled across marble tiles. For a moment, I stood there and felt something in my chest unclench. This week was supposed to fix things. This week was supposed to heal us. I approached the reception desk with my confirmation pulled up on my phone. $8,500. I hadn't blinked when I sent it. Jennifer had said she'd handle the booking if I covered the cost. "She's better with computers," she said. "Makes sense." The receptionist smiled, fingers poised over the keyboard. "Moreno, Truman, Moreno." She tapped and scrolled. "There should be 3 rooms reserved." Her smile stayed polite, but a shadow crossed her face. More clicking. A brief frown. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm showing 2 reservations under Jennifer Hayes, a family suite and a children's room. Are you perhaps listed under a different name?" The marble floor felt suddenly slanted beneath me. "No." My voice sounded small. "Check the payment records. I paid for everything. More keys." She bit her lower lip, a nervous, almost childlike gesture, and kept searching. "The payment did come through," she said, "but I'm only seeing those 2 rooms in our system. There may have been an error when the booking was made." Her tone offered advice, but not comfort. I stepped back, hands shaking, and dialed Jennifer. It rang 4 times, then dropped into her cheerful voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Jennifer. Leave a message." The voice felt like a mocking echo. I hung up and texted instead. "I'm at the hotel. There's no room for me. Call me, no typing bubbles. No, read receipts. Nothing." Around me, the lobby carried on like it always does. A young couple laughed as they collected key cards, the woman's hand tucked into the man's back pocket. Children darted around with vacation energy. An older pair bickered playfully over dinner plans. Everyone seemed to have their place. I found a leather armchair by the windows and sat with my suitcase at my side like a loyal dog. I refreshed my phone again. Still nothing. I scrolled through my emails. The charges were there, stamped in black and white. Family suite, children's room, resort fees, parking validation. I remembered handing Jennifer my card. "Just use 1 card for everything, Dad. Easier that way." I'd trusted her without a second thought. Why would I question my daughter? The clock's hands crept. A bellhop rolled a cart by. A woman in a sundress floated past, the smell of coconut sunscreen trailing her like an invisible perfume. I kept my face composed, trying to look as if I were waiting for someone, not as if I had nowhere to belong. Then a man in a crisp navy suit stopped in front of me. His name tag read Robert Chen, hotel manager. His expression was the exact kind of professional concern you'd expect from someone who notices discomfort and can't ignore it. "Mr. Moreno, I'm Robert Chen. Is everything all right?" His voice was calm, direct. When I told him the truth, that Jennifer had made the reservations and left me without a room, the words sounded absurd even as they left my mouth. Robert's jaw tightened for a heartbeat. He didn't accept forgetfulness as the natural explanation. There was a quick, precise calculation behind his eyes, the way some people don't believe an injury can come from simple negligence. He said, "Forgot," like he tasted bitterness, then squared his shoulders. "Come with me, Mr. Moreno. You deserve better." He didn't wait for me to answer. He simply motioned toward the elevators. I rose, grabbed my suitcase, and followed him. He walked with a confidence that felt almost protective, angrier on my behalf than I'd allowed myself to be. The elevator hummed up to the 4th floor in silence. Robert led me down a quiet corridor and clicked the master key card. Room 417 opened at his touch. The room took my breath. A king bed dressed in impossibly crisp white sheets, a cozy sitting area with a cream sofa, and an entire western wall of glass that turned the Pacific into a living, breathing promise. "This is one of our best ocean view rooms," Robert said, pressing the key into my palm. "On the house. Family should treat you better than strangers do." His words hovered between us. I opened my mouth to protest, to explain, but he only shook his head. "I've seen a lot in this business, but this... No. Please, enjoy your stay." He left before I could argue. The door clicked shut, and I was alone in luxury that had cost me nothing but the kindness of a man who'd known me 5 minutes. My phone lay where I'd tossed it on the bed, obediently mute. I crossed to the window and watched the ocean breathe, waves folding toward the shore with the patient cadence of something older than regret. On the beach below, tiny bright figures dotted the sand. Parents, children, laughter. The ordinary map of people who belonged to someone. For years, I'd told myself Jennifer was simply overwhelmed. Young parents, the cost of California, the logistics. Fathers helped. That's what I'd always done. Standing in a room, gifted by a stranger's empathy, the truth finally looked different in the light. Hours slipped past under the wide sky. The sun inched toward the horizon and painted the water in bruised oranges and soft golds that, for once, I couldn't appreciate. Around 6, voices rose faintly from the lobby and drifted up through my open balcony door. Jennifer's laugh, bright, unmistakable, cut through the quiet. I took the elevator down. They were gathered near the reception desk, beach sand clinging to little legs, sun on their skin. Dylan carried a bag slung over his shoulder. Emma and Caleb clutched half-melted ice creams, chocolate smeared on small chins. They looked like a family, whole and easy and used to belonging. Jennifer saw me first. Her face lit up in that way that used to make my chest go soft. "Dad, you made it. I was wondering when you'd get here." She hugged me quickly. She smelled of salt and sunscreen. Emma glanced up from her phone, offered a half-mumbled hello, then went back to her screen. Caleb didn't look up at all. Dylan stood a few feet away, absorbed in his phone, detached. Why wasn't there a room reserved for me? I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Oh, Dad," Jennifer waved it off like it was nothing. "You're a grown man. I figured you'd handle your own room. We maxed out that card on the suite and the kids' room. Ocean views aren't cheap." She laughed, really laughed, and squeezed my arm with a casual affection that felt rehearsed. Then, as if turning a page, she asked without missing a beat, "Hey, can you add another $2,000 to that card? I want to book some spa treatments. They have the best massages." The request slid out as if she'd said, "Pass the salt." There was no pause, no apology, no acknowledgement that leaving your father without a room might merit an explanation. Just another withdrawal from Dad's account. Dylan finally looked up long enough to pipe in, still scrolling. "These menu prices are insane. You're paying for dinner, right, Truman? Not Mr. Moreno. Not Dad." Truman, a stranger's name for the man at the table. Jennifer and Dylan moved toward the restaurant, the kids trailing behind, absorbed in their own small worlds. I followed because what else was there to do? This was supposed to be our week together. The hostess seated us by the windows where the view stole the room, but none of them glanced at it. Jennifer and Dylan sat across from me, the kids at the far end, sticky and distracted. When the server arrived with menus and a warm smile, he asked about drinks. Dylan ordered a craft beer. Jennifer wanted wine. I asked for water. The kids were handed sodas without a glance from their parents. Permission, apparently. No longer required. Nothing was required of them except my credit card. Jennifer launched straight into a play-by-play of their day, speaking to Dylan as if I were air. "So tomorrow we should definitely hit South Panto Beach in the morning, then that coastal hike we read about. There's supposed to be this amazing seafood place in the village for dinner." Dylan nodded without looking up from his screen. "Sounds good. That beach has better parking." They folded "we" into every sentence, a pronoun that never, not once, included me. I tried to wedge myself into the conversation. I thought we could visit the art galleries in the village tomorrow, I offered, voice careful. There's supposed to be a wonderful collection of local— Oh, we've got our day planned out, Jennifer cut me off without so much as a glance. You can do that yourself, can't you? You like that kind of thing anyway. Museums and art and all that. She said it like a diagnosis, as if enjoying art were some eccentricity she'd learned to politely tolerate. Dylan finally lowered his phone long enough to scan the menu. Prime rib, $65. Lobster, $78. He let the numbers land between us with the deliberate attention of someone tallying a tab. The server came back. Dylan ordered prime rib. Jennifer asked for sea bass. The kids wanted burgers with truffle fries. I picked the cheapest chicken dish I could find, not because I was hungry, but because it felt like the last modest defense I had. As we waited, Jennifer rattled off the resort amenities she intended to sample. Pools, hot tubs, beach cabanas, the kind of list that ended with, "And you should definitely pay for the spa." She reached across the table, squeezed Dylan's hand and said, "The spa has this couple's massage. It's $400, but we deserve it. We've been so stressed with work." The words slipped out as casually as an order for more bread. I watched the scene with a shrinking kind of clarity, and the memories began to stack themselves like bills on a table. Not just this week, everything. The wedding, $45,000. We couldn't ask his family to contribute, Jennifer had said. The first rental deposit, $15,000. Temporary, she'd promised. Dylan's car when his old one died, $28,000. A loan, she said. I never saw a payment. My grandchildren's private school tuition, $24,000 a year for the past 3 years. Essential, Jennifer insisted. Public schools inadequate. The credit card I'd given her 3 years ago, for emergencies, average charges of $1,500 to $3,000 a month. The emergencies never ended. When had she last called me without needing something? When had she last asked if I was okay? If I was lonely in the house that still smelled faintly of Margaret's lavender sachets? Those questions hung unanswered as our meals arrived. Dylan carved into his prime rib without ceremony. Jennifer posed the sea base for a photo before she took a bite. The kids complained that the burgers were too big. Nobody asked about my chicken. Conversation flowed around me like water around a rock. Plans, jokes, small grievances, future purchases. I was present but invisible, needed, clearly, as a resource, not as company. Emma piped up, "Can I get a new tablet?" Caleb wanted to know if there'd be time for the arcade. Jennifer smiled and assured them, "Yes, Grandpa will make sure you get what you want." My name had become a transaction invoked without shame. The check arrived, $320. Jennifer slid it across the table without meeting my eyes. The motion was automatic, practiced, the way things had always been. I pulled out my card and set it in the leather folio. The server processed the payment and thanked me with an extra warm smile that felt jarring against the chilly indifference from my family. "See you tomorrow, Dad. Thanks for dinner." Jennifer called over her shoulder as she rose, no invitation to walk with them, no suggestion of time together. Dylan said nothing. The children's argument trailed off into the hallway. I signed the receipt and left a generous tip because the server had treated me like a person worth noticing. Then I walked back to the room a stranger's pity had given me rather than my daughter's courtesy. The ocean view that had felt glorious that afternoon now looked vast and empty. I sat on the edge of the bed, too tired to sleep, my body heavy with exhaustion and something heavier still, the steady, sinking weight of being expected and not wanted. My mind wouldn't stop replaying it. Not just tonight, but years of the same pattern. Every visit centered on what I could provide. Every phone call arrived with a request. Every holiday, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday carried a price tag. Down the hallway their laughter drifted. Jennifer's bright trill, Dylan's low chuckle, the kids shrieking at something funny. They were together, enjoying the vacation I'd paid for. Without me. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to that distant chorus of family joy. We were in the same building, maybe 50 feet apart, and yet the gulf felt endless. In the dark, the truth sharpened like a blade. They hadn't forgotten to book my room. They'd never intended to include me. They wanted my money, not my company. They needed my bank account, not my presence. Useful, not loved. 7 years since Margaret's funeral, I'd told myself I was simply helping my daughter through hard times. Young families struggle. California is expensive. Fathers support their children. Lying there, the litany of excuses unspooled and frayed into lies I'd used to avoid seeing what was obvious. I never fell asleep. Dawn made slow work of the night, turning the ocean from black to pewter to blue. By the time sunlight touched the waves, something inside me had changed. My clothes from yesterday hung on my skin. My eyes stung from too little rest, but my head was clearer than it had been in years. I had spent the night adding up the pattern. I needed air. I needed a place to think that wasn't a room paid for by my absence. I laced my walking shoes and slipped out, taking the stairs so I wouldn't run into them in the elevator. The beach lay wide and empty at first light. The Pacific breathed a cool, salty breath. A few joggers passed, earbuds in. Seagulls carved the sky. I walked south, letting my architect's brain, trained to map problems and sketch solutions, work through the evidence. After 20 minutes, I found a little place tucked between surf shops. Sunrise Brew, its hand-painted sign creaky with charm. Warm light pooled inside. The aroma of fresh coffee pulled me to the door. The interior was small and homey. Local art on the walls, a handful of regulars murmuring over their cups. I ordered from a barista with purple-streaked hair and chose a table by the window. That's when I noticed her. Silver hair swept into a loose bun, jeans and a linen shirt that made her look effortless. She sketched with sure, easy strokes in a large pad. When she glanced up at the light, our eyes met and she smiled. "Lovely light at this hour," she said, nodding to the window. "Architect. Retired," I answered. It came out simple and true. I used to notice light and shadow, I added. I'd forgotten how, carrying other things. She set her pencil down and reached across the small gap with a steady hand. "Barbara Winters. I own a gallery up the street, Coastal Light Gallery." "Truman Moreno," I said. And we slid into conversation as strangers sometimes can at dawn, about architecture. Coastal Light, the discipline of paying attention. When she asked why I was in Carlsbad, I surprised myself by telling the truth. Not the messy details, but the shape of it. Family vacation, except apparently I wasn't part of the family. I braced for pity, but Barbara didn't offer platitudes. She cocked her head and said, "Forgot to include you, or chose not to remember." That distinction landed like a punch. I confessed that I'd been making excuses for years. She nodded slowly. "Family can be complicated," she said. "Sometimes the people who should value us most don't. Sometimes the best way to show them their mistake is to let them live with the consequences of their choices. Not revenge. Just natural results." Before I left, she gave me her card and invited me to the gallery. Walking back toward the hotel, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not quite hope, but the faintest possibility. The lobby was in full morning motion when I returned. Jennifer and Dylan were at the concierge with the kids in swimsuits, beach bags slung over their shoulders. Jennifer spied me and brightened, that practiced cheer that usually prefaced a request. "Oh, good, Dad, and perfect timing." She rattled off plans. "We're doing the coastal cave tour everyone raves about. It's $450 per person, so for the 5 of us—" "No." The single word left my lips clean and steady. Jennifer froze. "What? No, you're not serious." Dylan glanced up, irritation flickering across his face. Emma stopped scrolling. Even Caleb looked over. "Dad, come on," Jennifer said, laugh a little tight. "We're on vacation. Don't be difficult." "I'm here," I said. "There's a difference." I walked past them toward the elevators. Their shock trailed after me. "Are you serious right now?" Jennifer shouted. "What's his problem?" Dylan muttered. The doors closed on their puzzled faces. My hand trembled as I hit the button for the 4th floor. Adrenaline, fear, and a strange exhilaration mixing in my chest. 7 years of saying yes ended with one small, terrifying no. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, but cliffs have bottoms. and sometimes falling is how you learn to climb. Back in my room, I opened my banking app. I found the secondary card linked to my account, the one I'd given Jennifer for emergencies. I scrolled through months and years of charges, Augusts and Julys, long lists of so-called emergencies that looked suspiciously routine. My finger hovered over the button labeled Report Card Lost, Stolen. One tap would block the card. One tap would stop the steady stream of withdrawals. One tap would start a fight. Angry calls, accusations, tears, but it would also stop the leak. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Barbara's words echoed in my head, consequences of their own choices. I pictured myself the day before in the hotel lobby, suitcase at my feet, humiliated and ignored. My thumb hovered over the button on the banking app and then I tapped. Card blocked. The confirmation screen blinked. New card will arrive in 7-10 business days. I set the phone down like a small, dangerous thing. Careful, deliberate. I didn't wait for the fallout. By early afternoon, I'd checked out of the ocean view and driven the 30 minutes back to La Jolla, to the Spanish-style house Margaret and I had bought 40 years ago. It sat on a hillside with its wide view of the Pacific, worth about $1.2 million now. More home than a single man needs, but the rooms carried our life in them. I went straight to my office, neat filing cabinets, rolled plans on shelves, a desk that caught the light just right. I pulled 7 years of financial records, statements, canceled checks, credit card bills, Venmo logs, wire confirmations, and spread them across the desktop. If you're going to solve a problem, measure it, I told myself. The old architect's rule, measure twice. Cut once. I opened Excel and built columns. Date, amount, recipient, category, repaid, yes or no. Then I started entering the first request, 2 weeks after the funeral. Temporary rent help, $2,000. As I moved forward chronologically, the pattern unfolded with brutal clarity. Small asks became a steady stream. Every loan marked temporary, none marked repaid. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The sun arced across the sky. Wedding, June 2019, $45,000. Venue, caterer, flowers, photographer. Dylan's family couldn't contribute, I had accepted. Rental deposit, September 2020, $15,000. New place for the baby, first and last month. Dylan's car, March 2021, $28,000. Loan, she'd said. I never saw a payment. Private school tuition, starting September 2021, $24,000 a year. 4 years, and counting for Emma and Caleb because public schools were inadequate. The emergency credit card. I'd given Jennifer in 2022 average charges of $2,500 to $3,000 a month for 3 years. I tallied groceries next to getaways, medical bills beside furniture purchases, home repairs, $8,000, medical, $12,000, furniture, $5,000. Car fixes, $3,500. Miscellaneous crises. Thousands here, thousands there, each urgent, each temporary. When I entered the last transaction, this week's vacation, $8,500, and told Excel to sum the column, the total appeared without drama, $387,000. I clicked again, convinced I'd mistyped. The number didn't budge. In 7 years, my daughter had taken $387,000 from me. I pulled up my retirement balance, $850,000. The house, $1.2 million. At the current drain, about $55,000 a year, my liquid savings would be gone in a decade. I would be 63, staring at a meager remainder with decades of life ahead. This wasn't support. This was financial erosion. A slow, deliberate exhaustion of my future. The spreadsheet named it plainly, financial abuse. My phone began ringing around 4. Jennifer. I let it roll to voicemail. It rang again 5 minutes later, then again. The messages stacked up and I listened to them in order like a grim chronology. First, tight anger. Dad, the card's not working. I'm standing in Nordstrom with the cart. Call me back. Second, accusation. I don't know what you think you're proving. This is childish and cruel. Do you know how embarrassing it was when my card declined? Third, the next morning. Threat. Fine, you want to play this? Don't expect us to come running when you need help in your old age. Fourth, late afternoon. The pivot to manipulation. Dad, please. I'm sorry if I upset you. Can we talk? The kids miss you. Dylan left one too. Voice cool and condescending. Truman, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a petulant child. Jennifer's upset. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Now fix the card and let's move on like adults. I listened twice to each message. The old reflex, smooth it over, apologize, fix it, tugged at me. I could hear Margaret's voice in my head, urging charity, patience. But the spreadsheet glared back like a ledger of betrayal. $387,000. I sat there feeling something settle into place, heavy and inexorable. I typed one short message. We'll talk when I'm ready, not before. Then I muted the thread. The next morning, I began making concrete moves. I hired an appraiser. Yes, the $1.2 million estimate was accurate. And I started researching estate planning attorneys in San Diego. I needed someone experienced, decisive, unsentimental. Patricia Gomez kept rising to the top. 20 years experience, a steady reputation for protecting clients from family drama, terse but thorough online reviews. Her firm's tagline was exactly what I needed. I help clients protect their assets and make clear-headed decisions about their legacy. I called and booked a consultation for August 18th, 3 days, away. When the receptionist asked the usual question, "Is there some life change prompting this review?" I stared at the spreadsheet on my screen and said simply, "Yes, you could say that." That evening, Barbara texted, "Hope your day improved. Galleries open until 8 if you want to stop by." I surprised myself by wanting to go. I drove back to Carlsbad and found Coastal Light Gallery tucked down a side street near the village. Intimate, carefully curated, light falling across canvases like a blessing. Barbara showed me pieces with the kind of knowledge that comes from loving something for years. We ended up in a little office in back with coffee and easy chairs, and the conversation came without effort. I told her the shape of the story. Not every petty detail, but the outline. The hotel, the pattern of requests, the spreadsheet. She listened without spectacle. Then she told me, quietly, about her own fight. After her husband died, she and her brother had built the gallery together, she said. He later claimed half because they were related. "What did you do?" I asked. "I hired a lawyer and fought," she said. 8 months. I won. Her eyes were steady. Sometimes protecting yourself from family is the hardest, most necessary thing you'll do. We talked for 2 hours and made plans for dinner the next night. When she walked me to my car, she squeezed my hand and said, "You're doing the right thing. Trust yourself." Driving home along the coast, the sunset set the water on fire, and for the first time in a long while I felt a small, clear thing. Possibility, not just hope. On the 16th, Barbara and I met for dinner at a tucked-away Italian place in the village. Candlelight, white linens, a corner booth that let us speak without interruption. I had planned to stay surface level, but when the server poured the wine, the story tumbled out. I told her everything. The wedding, the car, the tuition, the emergency card that had funded luxuries, the vacation I'd paid for but hadn't been invited to join. I made a spreadsheet, I said. 7 years. $387,000. Barbara didn't gasp or pity me. She nodded, impressed by the evidence. "You documented everything," she said. "Good, what will you do?" "Change my will," I answered. "Tomorrow, actually. I have an attorney appointment." She touched my hand, not with pity but with recognition. She told me again about her fight with her brother and how she never regretted standing up for what she built. "Some relationships aren't worth the price they demand," she said. "Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from." We ate slowly, speaking of art and light and architecture until the conversation eased. Underneath it ran a quiet current of shared knowledge. Two people who'd learned the same hard lesson. The next afternoon, back home and gathering documents Patricia would need, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the window I saw them. Jennifer, Dylan, Emma, and Caleb on my porch. Jennifer's face was carefully composed, reasonable, worried, the practiced look of a daughter concerned about her father. My hand hovered on the doorknob. Every instinct told me to close the door, but the children stood there, innocent in the middle of the mess. I opened it. "Dad," Emma said. Jennifer's voice was calm, practiced, every syllable measured. "We need to talk." "Can we come in?" she asked. I stepped aside and they filed into the living room. The Spanish tile Margaret and I had picked 4 decades ago, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean. My house, my privacy, invaded. Jennifer folded herself onto the sofa while Dylan planted himself by the door like a guard. The children perched on chair edges, uneasy and wide-eyed. Jennifer's tone was perfectly pitched. Hurt, but not accusing. Conciliatory, not contrite. "Dad, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she began. "We're family. We can work this out without whatever this is you're doing." I said nothing. Let her keep speaking. "I know you're upset about the hotel room. That was a real mistake. Maybe we've been too dependent on your generosity. We can talk about that. We can start fresh." Notice what she didn't say. No apology, no recognition of the $387,000 she'd taken. Just damage control, smoothing the edges until money kept flowing the same direction. Then she used the line she'd clearly rehearsed. "Dad, Mom would have wanted you to take care of us. She'd be heartbroken to see this division." Margaret had been gone 7 years, a life of kindness and integrity reduced to a manipulative cudgel in Jennifer's mouth. Something inside me snapped. "Don't." The word came out harsher than I intended. "Don't you dare use your mother's memory to justify your greed." Jennifer flinched. She'd never seen me truly angry. "Your mother would be ashamed," I continued, my voice tight with controlled fury. "She taught you better than this. Love isn't transactional. Family isn't endless taking." My chest thrummed. "You've taken $387,000, I said, and the room tilted. Every loan that was never repaid. Every emergency that became a monthly habit. Every charge on that emergency card that funded luxuries while you called it necessity. I documented it all." The color drained from Jennifer's face, but she pivoted with the poise of someone who practices damage control. "Those were gifts," she said, quick as breath. "You gave willingly. You can't retroactively decide they were taken out of entitlement." Dylan stepped forward, arms folded. "As a father, you're obligated to help your family," he intoned. "No," I said, looking at him straight in the eyes. "You're adults with incomes. What you've done only proves I'm making the right decision." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Not grief, but the strategic, practiced kind meant to turn the knife. "How can you do this?" she demanded. "You're choosing some stranger over your family." "I'm choosing myself," I answered. "That's what you never understood. I'm a person, not a checkbook." I gathered my resolve into calmness and watched her collect the kids, drying her eyes with a hand that had been well drilled in performance. Dylan's polite mask slipped, revealing something colder. "Fine," he said flatly. "Don't come crying when you need us in your old age." The threat hung there like an ultimatum. But it only confirmed what I already knew. People who weaponize abandonment aren't family. They're hostage-takers. They left. The front door closed and silence rushed in like cold air. My hands trembled slightly as the adrenaline ebbed, but beneath the shock was something steadier. Certainty. I had done the right thing. My phone buzzed. "Barbara. Thinking of you. Coffee tomorrow before your appointment?" I smiled. Someone without an agenda. Someone present. I typed back, "Yes." That night I laid out the folder Patricia had requested. Bank statements, deeds, wills, every paper organized and labeled. Tomorrow would start the legal work. The law office sat on the 15th floor of a glass tower in downtown San Diego. I drove in that morning with my folder of evidence and 7 years of being treated like someone's retirement fund. The reception area was quiet and clinical. Legal journals, filtered water, the hush of business that takes itself seriously. A young woman at the desk smiled and told me Patricia would be right with me. Patricia Gomez appeared 3 minutes later. 52, professional, a firm handshake, and direct eyes. "Mr. Moreno, thank you for being prompt. Come on back." Her office looked out over San Diego Bay. Degrees lined a wall, family photos on a credenza, an efficient desk. No wasted pleasantries, she got to the point. "Tell me what brought you here." "I need to change my will," I said. "My daughter has been taking advantage of me financially for years. I want to protect my assets." I told her the total, $387,000 over 7 years, none repaid. Patricia didn't flinch. "And you documented this?" she asked. I slid the spreadsheet across her desk. She reviewed it, made a few notes, then spoke in a tone that felt like both caution and relief. "In California, you have full discretion over your estate. Your daughter has no automatic legal claim to your assets while you're alive or after you die, not to an adult with independent income. That said, your real risk is a will contest." She explained how Jennifer might allege undue influence or diminished capacity to try to overturn changes. "We'll protect you by documenting competency," Patricia continued. "Medical evaluations, witness statements, a clear paper trail showing you made these decisions deliberately and rationally." She outlined a practical plan. A revocable living trust, a new will, durable power of attorney, and a healthcare directive, a complete package to shield assets and make contests harder. Cost, $4,500. Timeline, documents ready in 1 week. Hearing the strategy firmed something inside me. This was no longer just anger. It was a plan. Jennifer's voice was clipped, perfectly controlled. "We need to talk." "Can we come in?" she asked. I stepped aside and they filed into my living room. The Spanish tile Margaret and I chose decades ago, the ocean filling the windows. My house felt exposed, every architectural detail suddenly part of their stage. Jennifer planted herself on the sofa while Dylan stood by the door like a sentinel. The children perched on the edges of chairs, watching the grown-ups with that uneasy vigilance kids learn early. "Dad, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Jennifer began, her tone calibrated. Hurt, but not accusing. Conciliatory, but not contrite. "We're family. We can work this out without whatever this is you're doing." I said nothing. "Let her speak." "We know you're upset about the hotel room. That was a mistake," she continued. "Maybe we've been too dependent on your generosity. We can talk. We can start fresh." Notice what was missing. No apology, no recognition of the $387,000 she'd taken. Just an effort to smooth things back to how they'd always been. Money flowing from me to them. Then she reached for the line she expected would close the deal. "Dad, Mom would have wanted you to take care of us. She'd be heartbroken to see this division." Margaret had been gone 7 years. Her memory was sacred, and Jennifer turned it into a weapon. Something inside me snapped. "Don't." My voice was sharper than I intended. "Don't you dare use your mother's memory to defend your greed." Jennifer startled. She'd never seen me truly angry. "Your mother would be ashamed," I said, voice tight. "She taught you that love isn't transactional. She taught you family isn't an endless tab." I could feel my pulse in my throat. "You've taken $387,000, I said plainly. "Every loan not repaid, every emergency that became routine, every charge on that emergency card bought luxury while you called it necessity. I documented it all." The color drained from her face, but she was quick to pivot. "Those were gifts," she said. "You gave willingly. You can't retroactively decide they were taken out of entitlement." Dylan stepped forward, arms folded, posture deliberately menacing. "As a father, you have to help your family," he intoned. "No," I said, looking him directly in the eyes. "You're adults with incomes. What you've done proves I'm making the right choice." Jennifer's eyes welled, a practiced, tactical cry designed to turn the room against me. "How can you do this?" she demanded. "You're choosing some stranger over your family. I'm choosing myself, I answered. I'm a person, not a checkbook. I held my ground while she gathered the children, wiping her cheeks with a hand that had been practiced in performance. Dylan's polite mask slipped, revealing something harder. Fine, he said coldly. Don't come crying when you need us in your old age. The threat landed like an ugly verdict. Yet it only confirmed my resolve. Those who wield abandonment as leverage aren't family. They're hostage-takers. They left. The door clicked shut and silence filled the house, cold and clarifying. My hands trembled as the adrenaline faded, but beneath it all was a steady certainty. I had done the right thing. My phone buzzed. Barbara. Thinking of you. Coffee tomorrow before your appointment? I smiled. A person reaching out with no ledger attached. I typed yes. That night I organized the folder Patricia had requested. Bank statements, deeds, wills, every document annotated and in order. Tomorrow would begin the legal work. Patricia's office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower in downtown San Diego. I drove in that morning with my folder of evidence and 7 years of having been treated like someone's retirement plan. The reception area was quietly professional. Magazines, filtered water, the hush of serious business. Patricia appeared in 3 minutes, 52, businesslike, a firm handshake, and direct eyes. Mr. Moreno, she said. Come on back. Her office overlooked the bay. Degrees framed the wall, an organized desk suggested method, family photos softened the space. She asked me to tell the story. I laid out the figures, $387,000 over 7 years, none repaid. I slid the spreadsheet across her desk. She didn't flinch. And you documented this? She asked. I nodded. She studied the paperwork and spoke plainly. In California, you have full discretion over your estate. An adult child with income does not automatically inherit. But she cautioned me about contests. Jennifer could allege undue influence or diminished capacity. Her plan was surgical. Document my competency with medical evaluations, gather witness statements, preserve an ironclad paper trail that showed these decisions were deliberate and rational. Patricia recommended a revocable living trust, a new will, a durable power of attorney, and a healthcare directive. A package to shield assets and make contesting difficult. Cost, $4,500. Timeline, ready in a week. Hearing a clear, practical strategy steadied me. This was a plan, not just pain. I didn't hesitate. Let's do everything, I said. Patricia asked how I wanted my estate distributed. I decided, in the sleepless hours after the hotel humiliation, 70% to a charitable foundation in Margaret's name supporting architectural education, 20% to an educational trust for my grandchildren, locked until age 25 and managed by an independent trustee, 10% for personal items and smaller charitable gifts. Jennifer would receive nothing directly. Patricia took notes without judgment. Some clients worry this looks vindictive, she said. It's not. It's protective. What if she contests? I asked. Patricia leaned back. With proper documentation, she said, Jennifer had a tiny chance, maybe 5%. The cost to pursue a claim, $50,000 to $100,000, would deter most. The math and the evidence of exploitation would work against her. We filled out forms, property addresses, account numbers, beneficiary names. I named the trust for Margaret, the Margaret Moreno Educational Foundation, the Grandchildren's Fund, Hayes Family Education Fund. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jennifer's married name on money she wouldn't touch. Patricia walked me to the elevator. You're doing the right thing, she said. Don't wait until it's too late. I walked out into San Diego sunlight with a feeling I hadn't known in years. Not happiness exactly, but freedom. I drove back to La Jolla, my mind working through everything. At a red light, my phone buzzed. Barbara, how did it go? Better than expected, I texted. Meet tonight, beach walk at sunset? That evening we walked La Jolla's nearly empty shore, barefoot, waves cold and bright around our ankles. Barbara took my hand. No fanfare, just easy warmth. I told her about Patricia's plan. The trust, the protective provisions, the grandchildren's fund. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said. She squeezed my hand. We walked in companionable silence, spoke of gallery sales and new artists, the ordinary things that make life steady. She stopped where the beach curved and the sun poured gold across the water. You know what I like about you? She asked. What? You finally chose yourself. She kissed me then, brief, gentle, promising. It felt like a beginning. For a day or two, I breathed easier. The legal wheels turned quietly at Patricia's office. Barbara and I texted through the afternoon. I allowed myself the small luxury of believing the hard part was behind me. Then Jennifer found out. On the morning of August 19th, my phone erupted. Jennifer's number flashed repeatedly. I let the first few go to voicemail. The messages felt like a sequence rehearsed for drama. Someone saw your car at an estate attorney's office. Call me. Call right now. How could you go behind my back? Final one. Cold and controlled. Fine. If this is how you want to play it, we'll play. Dylan left a message slick with condescension. This is disrespectful. You owe us a conversation. I didn't return their calls. Instead, I sent a single text. My legal affairs are my business. Nothing has changed about how I feel for my grandchildren. No need for theatrics. On the morning of August 20th, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw them posed on my porch like a staged photo. Jennifer, Dylan, Emma, Caleb. The children clutched handmade cards peppered with crayon and glitter. Innocent offerings. We love you. Grandpa, one proclaimed in careful letters. I opened the door. The kids looked at their parents for cues. The whole scene felt rehearsed, the children weaponized for emotional effect. My heart ached not for the manipulation but for them. I knelt to their level. Thank you for these beautiful cards. I love you both very much. Then, turning to their parents, I said, The children can come in. You two wait here. Jennifer started to protest. My look stopped her. Emma and Caleb followed me inside and I took them to the kitchen. Cookies, juice, gentle questions about school and what they liked this summer. They relaxed and became, for a half hour, what children should be. Themselves, not props. Mom said you were sad and needed cheering up, the boy said, crumbs on his lips. My chest ached for their innocence. After 30 minutes, I walked them back to the front door where their parents waited, faces schooled into patience. I have always loved you, I told the children, loud enough for their parents to hear. I will always love my grandchildren. But love isn't money, and I won't confuse the two. Jennifer's face cycled through shock, anger, rapid calculation. Dylan took the children's hands and led them to the car. Jennifer lingered on the porch, voice thin. You're really doing this? She asked. I am, I said. I closed the door. The latch clicked, a small, decisive punctuation that felt like the end of a long sentence and the start of everything that followed. The next blow landed the afternoon of August 21st. An old colleague's text lit my phone. Hey, saw something on Facebook that might be about you. Everything okay? I don't use Facebook much, but I logged into the dormant account and searched Dylan's name. His profile was public. The post had been up for 2 hours and read like a carefully scripted attack. Sometimes you realize family members aren't who you thought when an elderly parent suddenly turns against their own children and grandchildren because of financial disagreements. What happened to loyalty and generosity? We supported him through grief, included him in our lives, and now he's punishing us because he thinks we're not wealthy enough to refuse help he offered freely. It's heartbreaking watching selfishness dressed up as independence. The comment thread had already started. Family should support each other. How sad. Praying for you, mixed with the more skeptical, maybe there are two sides and why air this publicly? Names weren't used, but anyone who knew us would recognize the portrait instantly. Dylan had framed himself as the injured party and painted me as the miser. Public humiliation, reputation smearing, sympathy warfare. My hands shook as I read. Every muscle wanted to respond, to post the spreadsheet, to prove the truth with cold numbers. But before I could act, Barbara called. I saw it, she said as if she'd been waiting. Someone sent it to me. Don't respond. Her voice was blunt and steady. He's lying. Folks who know you will know the truth. Folks who don't know you don't matter. I started to argue, show the evidence, prove what really happened, and she cut me off gently. You trade your dignity for a Facebook fight. Don't play on their field, Truman. This is exactly what people do when they're losing control. They try to burn your reputation because they can't control you anymore. Her words calmed something raw inside me. Do nothing. You protect yourself legally. Live your life. After we hung up, I sat with the discomfort of silence. It went against every instinct. But Barbara was right. Responding would hand them oxygen. Silence would let it fade. Friends reached out over the next few hours. Calls from people who mattered, checking if I was okay. I answered with the same short line to each. I'm fine. Thank you for caring. No details, no argument. Brevity starved the rumor. That evening, Barbara and I walked La Jolla Cove. Shops shut for the night. The ocean filled the hush between our words. She took my arm. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected, I said. She told me about similar tactics from her brother during their legal fight. Vague posts, slow poisoning of reputation. I responded once, she said, voice small. Biggest mistake. It gave him fuel for months. I stopped reading. I focused on my gallery and my life. Eventually, his posts looked desperate. We walked in companionable silence as the August sky darkened. My phone stayed quiet. Perhaps they'd exhausted their ammunition for the moment. Tomorrow, Patricia would finish the documents. In 3 days, I would sign. The signing was called a ceremony, and I dressed as if I were honoring that word. Not for show, but because certain moments deserve formality. Patricia's conference room looked out over San Diego Bay. The table was laid with precision. New will, revocable living trust, durable power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive, the legal architecture of protection. Patricia reviewed each page, tone clinical and kind. Present were a notary public, a professional woman in her 50s, and 2 neutral witnesses from Patricia's office. Witnesses cannot be beneficiaries, Patricia explained. The formality felt right. This wasn't a casual signature. It was life-altering. Mr. Moreno, Patricia asked plainly, are you executing these documents of your own free will without coercion? Completely voluntary, I answered. The notary verified identity, full legal name, birth date, inspected and photocopied my driver's license. Patricia walked me through the will, the trust, the power of attorney, the healthcare directive. I initialed page after page. Each signature felt heavier than the last, the pen moving like a metronome marking a new rhythm. The witnesses signed. The notary pressed the official seal, its sound solid and final like a gavel falling. Patricia gathered the originals. These are legally binding, she said. Copies will be filed. The originals are secure in our vault. I handed her the check for $4,500 I'd prepared. Transaction complete. After the formalities, Patricia brought out a letter of intent, not legally binding but explanatory, a calm narrative to sit beside the legal instruments. She had drafted it from our conversations and read parts aloud. Over 7 years, I provided $387,000 in financial support. Wedding expenses, housing assistance, vehicle purchase, education costs, and credit card charges. I gave these funds out of love and obligation, expecting nothing in return. However, the Ocean View incident made clear I was valued as a financial resource rather than as a father. I have provided for my grandchildren's education through an irrevocable trust. The remainder of my estate will fund architectural scholarships in memory of my late wife, Margaret. Hearing those sentences spoken into the quiet room made everything feel unmistakably real. The words weren't angry. They were factual and final, a record of the past and a blueprint for the future. The next strike landed like a thrown brick, August 21st. An old colleague's text blinked on my phone. Hey, saw something on Facebook that might be about you. Everything okay? I hardly use Facebook, but I logged into the dormant account and searched Dylan. His profile was public. 2 hours earlier, he'd posted a carefully worded smear. Sometimes you realize family members aren't who you thought when an elderly parent suddenly turns against their own children and grandchildren because of financial disagreements. What happened to loyalty and generosity? We supported him through grief, included him in our lives, and now he's punishing us because we weren't wealthy enough to refuse help he offered freely. Heartbreaking to watch selfishness posed as independence. The comments were already busy. Sympathy, outrage, a few cautious, maybe there are two sides. No names were used, but anyone who knew us would understand immediately. Dylan had painted himself the wounded child and me the selfish villain. My hands shook reading it. Every instinct screamed to answer, to lay out the spreadsheet, to show the $387,000 in black and white. Barbara called before I could act. "I saw it," she said flatly. "Someone sent it to me. Don't respond." Her voice left no room for argument. "He's lying. People who know you know the truth. People who don't matter. But even if you can prove it, you trade dignity for a Facebook fight. Don't play on their field. This is what people do when they're losing control. They try to burn your reputation because they can't control you anymore. Do what you've been doing. Protect yourself legally and live your life." Her words calmed the rawness inside me. I stayed silent. True friends called over the next hours, people whose opinions carried weight. I gave the same short answer to each. "I'm fine. Thank you for caring." No details, no fuel for gossip. Late that night, Barbara and I walked La Jolla Cove. Shops shutting, the ocean a steady breath between our words. She told me about her brother's tactics during their fight. Vague posts, slow poison. I responded once, she said. Huge mistake. It gave him months of ammunition. I stopped reading. I focused on my gallery and my life. His posts started to look desperate. I listened and felt the tension loosen a little. Tomorrow, Patricia would finish the documents. In 3 days, I would sign. The whole thing had been called a ceremony. I dressed for it the way you dress for something that matters. Quietly, with respect. Patricia's conference room looked over San Diego Bay. The table held the new will. Revocable trust, durable power of attorney, advance healthcare directive, the legal architecture to protect my future. A notary and 2 neutral witnesses from Patricia's office were present. Patricia ran through each page, precise and calm. "Mr. Moreno, are you executing these documents of your own free will without coercion?" she asked. "Completely voluntary," I answered. My driver's license was checked, my name and birth date confirmed. I initialed pages, signed signature lines. The pen felt heavy in my hand each time. Every stroke was a small, definite closure. The notary's seal hit the paper with a finality that resonated in the quiet room. Patricia gathered the originals for the firm's vault. I handed over the check for $4,500. Done. Patricia then handed me a letter of intent, not legal but factual and calm, which she read aloud. 7 years and $387,000 in financial support. Documented. Wedding costs, housing assistance, vehicle purchase, education and credit card charges itemized. The Ocean View incident showing I was valued more as a resource than as a father. The grandchildren provided for through an irrevocable trust. The remainder of my estate to fund architectural scholarships in Margaret's name. The language was clinical, not vindictive. Truth written down and preserved. "Should I send this to Jennifer now?" I asked. "Wait," Patricia advised. "If she contests, this is powerful evidence of your clear thinking. If she accepts reality, you may never need it." I agreed. The letter stayed in the file, ready but withheld. Returning home, the house felt familiar and quiet. I sat at the desk where the spreadsheet had begun everything, the invisible finally visible. My phone was suddenly still. No. Calls from Jennifer since the grandchildren visit. Perhaps she planned her next move. Perhaps she was quiet. I looked at photos. Margaret smiling, Jennifer as a child, the grandchildren at different ages. I hoped Margaret would understand. Then Barbara texted, "How did it go?" "Done. Official. Signed. Sealed. Filed. Feeling free?" I replied, "That's exactly right. Come for dinner tonight." 7. Barbara's house was a small craftsman filled with art and warmth. She cooked simple pasta while I set the table. The intimacy of a private home felt different from the beach or a restaurant. Smaller, truer. Over dinner, we talked about the ceremony and Patricia's final advice. Barbara told me more about her own fight and how she'd fortified herself. Later, on her patio under string lights, she said, "You've changed." I asked if I had. She answered, "You're becoming who you always could have been." I owned up to not feeling strong. She corrected me gently. Strength is getting back up and choosing differently. I admitted I hadn't felt this way since Margaret died. Barbara moved closer, took my hand, and asked, "What do you want, Truman?" For once, I could answer, "Now." She kissed me, deeper than the first, more certain. We talked of small future things, travel, gallery expansion, consulting. It was a conversation about possibility, not defense. I waited a day before calling Jennifer, not to delay the inevitable, but to let the evening's peace settle into me. On the morning of the 24th, I texted, "We need to talk. Tomorrow, Tootie, my house, just you and Dylan." Her reply came instantly. Finally. I spent the day preparing copies of the will, the trust, the letter of intent, and placed them on the coffee table. Cleaned the house so Clarity would sit in a clean room. Barbara called and said she'd be nearby. On August 25th at 2:00, the doorbell rang. Jennifer and Dylan arrived tidy, their faces set like people performing reconciliation. I offered no warmth, no hostility, just the room and the rules. I slid the folder across the table and said, "These are copies. Read them." They read. Jennifer flipped through until she found herself. Or rather, didn't. Her expression went through confusion, disbelief, shock. Dylan leaned in, jaw tight. Silence spread while the pages whispered. 70% to a charitable foundation, I read aloud. 20% to an educational trust for the grandchildren, accessible at age 25, managed by an independent trustee. 10% for personal items and smaller donations. Jennifer Hayes. No direct bequest. Jennifer's voice came out thin and disbelieving. "You can't do this." I was steady. "I already have," I said. "Signed on the 22nd, witnessed and notarized." Dylan exploded with the familiar accusation. "You're under someone's influence. That woman, Barbara, she's manipulated you." I remained seated, calm. I had a full medical evaluation, capacity testing. I'm sound. The attorney anticipated this. Jennifer tried tears. The body language was there, but real tears wouldn't come. Her performance faltered. Dylan threatened, "You'll regret this." "Who will care for you when you're old?" I answered plainly. "I'll hire professional care or rely on friends who value me for me. Not for my money." Jennifer tried one last line. "Friends? Her? You barely know her." Barbara had been in my life 6 weeks and shown more care in that time than my daughter had in 7 years. That statement landed. Dylan muttered that everything I'd done for them proved otherwise. I asked one simple thing. Name one gift they'd made that wasn't a preface to another ask. Silence. They had nothing. They rose to leave. Hope flickered in Jennifer's eyes, then went still. I paused before they reached the door. "The financial decision is final," I said. "Non-negotiable. If someday you want a relationship built on respect instead of taking, I'm open. The grandchildren will have their education covered. You can't touch that, but they're provided for." Jennifer's face hardened. Dylan pulled the door open. "You'll hear from our attorney," she said as she left. "It'll cost you $50,000 to $100,000 to defend. But if you want to spend that proving you were right, go ahead." The door clicked shut. I sent 2 quiet words to Barbara. "It's done." She replied immediately. "Come for breakfast tomorrow?" The next morning, August 26th, I woke with sunlight warming the house and a feeling that the confrontation was over. Coffee tasted better. The world hadn't changed, only my place in it had. I drove to Carlsbad with the windows down to Barbara's gallery. She was painting a wall, paint in her hair, a smile when she saw me. "Perfect timing. I need someone who understands space," she said. We worked together, placing art, adjusting lighting, trusting each other's eye. It felt good to be needed for my skill, not my checkbook. That evening on the same beach where we'd first met, a text from Jennifer appeared. "Dad, we need to talk. Really talk." I showed Barbara. We agreed. Someday, maybe. Not today. I texted, "Not ready yet. When you are, I'll listen." I didn't block them. I left the door open, on my terms. Months later, the pattern Patricia predicted held true. They never filed a will contest. The cost and low chances deterred them. Pride wasn't enough to fuel the tens of thousands a fight would cost. They found steady work, Jennifer in real estate, Dylan keeping on, and learned by necessity to live within their means. Jennifer texts sometimes, pictures of the grandchildren, brief updates. I respond warmly but briefly. No requests. The relationship is altered, damaged, not destroyed, and now rests on new boundaries. Barbara and I set a spring 2026 wedding date for a small ceremony with close friends. I began consulting on her second gallery in San Diego's Little Italy, work that brings joy because it builds something real and beautiful. The grandchildren's education fund grows untouched. The Margaret Moreno Educational Foundation is established. Scholarships will be awarded this fall. I lost $387,000 over 7 years, a bitter sum, but I gained myself, and I gained Barbara. Standing in the gallery we designed together, sunlight exactly where we want it, I understand the truth I could not when I began this. The best revenge is living well. And right now, I am living very, very well.